Hello, once again, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of AIW's The Card is Going to Change. And before we get into this week's episode, of course, a thanks to our sponsors that help us bring the show to you for free on whichever podcast platform you choose to listen. Thanks to our friends at Smokin' Jay's Barbecue. We appreciate them anytime they're able to roll up into town and provide us with the opportunity to give you some great food while you're at the Odeon or wherever it may be. Brock and the crew there doing an amazing job. They are down in the Massillon area, so if you're ever down that way, or if you live down that way and you listen to this, check them out. If you want some catering for your events and you live anywhere in the Northeast Ohio area, heck, they may go beyond that, though it gets probably iffy in terms of traveling with food. But reach out at smokin_Jays, Jays, BBQ, and see everything that they have to offer there. You can check them out on social media with that handle on all platforms. And thanks to the merger of IWTV and Smart Mark Video, which is going on a few years now here. I feel like they got to be starting to celebrate an anniversary at some point here. But thanks to it, watching AIW has never been easier. You can go to smartmarkvideo.com, and if you're into physical media, you can purchase any DVD that has ever been available from AIW. The whole full archive and collection is at smartmarkvideo.com. You can also purchase MP4s to own there. If streaming services are more your thing, then go to IWTV, download it, get a subscription for $9.99. Use the promo code ABSOLUTE if they let you throw it in there, just so they know that we're the ones who sent you, and watch not only a rotating archive of AIW shows, but all sorts of other independent wrestling promotions and original series from IWTV as well. That being said, we roll into this week's episode. Of course, as always, AIW owner John Thorne is here. And my name is Steve Guy, your moderator of sorts. And we're headed into Akron this coming weekend. But before we really talk about all of that, we
hard sell, baby. It's hard sell, baby.
It's a hard sell week. A Rose making the comment in the Discord, we should just change the name of the podcast to Hard Sell. Sometimes life takes over. A Rose, we're busy guys. So, but we make sure we give you the podcast on Hard Sell week. That's for sure. Before all that, though, of course, as I was saying, the shout out time, John Thorne. We got to throw some shout outs out there. I'll tell you, I'm going to lead off with a shout out to our guy, Dustin Alberti. I bartended on Saturday night, the day after my birthday. Dustin Alberti rolled in. Appreciated seeing him. He popped over for a drink and a brief celebration of my birthday. So thanks, Alberti, and his lady there. Very nice. Got to meet her for the first time.
I'm going to shout out the Cheesecake Factory. Swung by this weekend to pay my respects to number 6, who's on his way out. Grabbed myself a nice chicken Parmesan pizza style for all you Cheesecake Factory people out there. So that's my shout out. RIP number 6.
Did you happen to look out back and see if
Black? I was looking around the dumpsters back there, but allegedly. Yeah. That girl that is friends with the one guy that comes to AIW all the time. I always ask him about it. Trying to get a celeb appearance in the crowd, but to no avail.
Shout out to on behalf of Derek. Shout out to a local legend, DJ EV. Hooked us up. We went to see. He's a friend and a part owner of the new club called Lost in Cleveland. And kind of gave us cool VIP access last weekend, maybe 2 weeks ago now. And that was pretty neat. It's a neat little place there. You go downstairs. It's cool vibe. A lot of glowy stuff. Made me feel like I was back at Wrestle Rave, actually. So shout out to EV there.
Shout out to the Winchester. I mean, speaking of Wrestle Rave, we are 2 for 2 thus far in 2022 with successful events at the Winchester. we were a little nervous about it. This most recent one, obviously, and it ended up turning out okay. And we are back on May the 5th for Cybernetico de Mayo on Cinco de Mayo. So bringing a little Lucha Libre flair to the Winchester on May the 5th. So shout out to the Winchester.
Shout out to our boy Parker Pierce too. We left the Winchester as things died down. Made our last stop, which ended up being first stop, to see our pal Parker Pierce, who not doing shots during the Lenten season.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it is a new year, and the draft rights for Wrestle Rage are heating up. So, we had to make our presence known at the last location, see if there is interest there among other other locations. Shopping it around a little bit. So I had to, get back in the hunt there for a Rust Rager location and swing by the first stop and see if they were still interested. Which, from what I hear, they are. So if you're a bar trying to steal the Wrestle Rager event away, you better get to us soon because offers are getting put on the table.
Ooh, oh my. More on that as things develop, but you heard it there first, folks. That's a bombshell being dropped. I don't really have any more shout outs because I know that we want to reflect on one in particular. You got any other quick shout outs you want to throw out there, John Thorne?
Steve, I never have shout outs. I shout out the fucking Cheesecake Factory. Come on. This is your segment.
It's a good time. Well, cut it short, keep it short here today. Because as we roll into Akron, we of course have to look back at one of our biggest Akron draws of all time. Of course, right before the pandemic hit, it was the show titled Hey Yo. Scott Hall was our guest, and obviously, as everybody knows, Scott Hall unfortunately just passed away. And so, a shout out of shout outs for sure.
What a bummer, man. Seriously. Just so, it's weird because there's so many deaths in wrestling, you know what I mean? And some of them, impact you, and some of them, not to sound callous or whatever, they don't really impact you at all.
Mm-hmm.
And man, when I heard the Scott Hall news, I thought there is no way, there's absolutely no way. And he's most definitely gonna, beat it and be totally fine. And as the news, progressed and it got worse, I was still pretty in denial about it. Honestly, I thought that, if anybody was gonna, achieve this miracle, it was going to be Scott Hall. And then, you see the report, they took him off life support and he still lived. And, I was like, man, fuck yeah. Here we go. And then,
yeah, this is it. Yeah,
man, Raw opens up with that graphic and it's, it's pretty much, that was it. It's such a bummer. I had, we booked Scott Hall 2 times. Probably, I think the first time was in 2015 or 2016.
It was 2015. It was my very first show, ring announcing.
Absolute top bucket list guy for me. Scott Hall was always one of my favorite wrestlers when I was growing up. And, just one of those polarizing figures. I know that term is thrown around a lot, in wrestling, but Scott Hall truly was a polarizing figure, especially coming up as a teenager in the wrestling boom and, the lore of the Clique and everything else. And there's just nothing cooler about Scott Hall, as far as I'm concerned. And, it was an ultimate bucket list thing to book him. And the first time we booked him, it was awesome. The second time we booked him, it was awesome. And yeah, it's, we can get into it a little bit more, but I guess I'll let you kind of chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's you're sitting there the whole day, and we're all in our group chat talking about it, and like, nah, no, this is gonna be okay. Like, if anybody's gonna get out of this, it's Scott Hall, And I think you just think about everything his life. It's well documented, him overcoming demons and certain things, and you're like, all right, he's gonna get out of this, and man, it sucked. Like, yeah, I grew up, I grew up loving the bad guy. Razor Ramon was one of my favorites. Talked about it many times before to people. Just that was always a guy that I enjoyed. I mean, I remember as a kid getting the VHS from Coliseum Home Video, renting it from Blockbuster to watch WrestleMania 10, and jumping off my couch during that ladder match with Shawn Michaels. And I was always enamored with him. And I think, we look back at wrestling now, but even more so, people are already starting to look back, and you look at Scott Hall, and he is right there in the thick.
I think he is
industry changing things,
I really think he is probably the most important, at least one of the most important wrestlers ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's not necessarily like accolades inside of the ring, but it's just everything.
He did so much to kind of push the industry, the ladder match. There's no guaranteed contracts without Scott Hall. Like, so much stuff. And the one thing that I loved, and it kind of, makes you think about where we are in the world right now is, I know when we booked him, most recently, right before the pandemic in February of 2020, people were so judgy of him based on, that E60 and the other, stuff that had gotten around about his demons. And, we got so many, very similar to the Sonny situation, which, I know Sonny is back to going through some issues again. But we got so many just like shitty comments on Facebook and tweets. And, it was refreshing to see so many positive stories shared about him. But what sucks is they were all shared about him after he is gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you even go back and look, he deleted his Twitter because, probably a lot to do with that. And sometimes he would lash back out, and then, people would blame him. But if you go look at his Instagram, there are people that are just so say the shittiest things to like somebody that is battling with addiction problems. People are so mean to that guy. And to think about, when he's just sitting there reading that shit, you know what I mean? Thinking, oh, should I go grab a drink? You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's just, people are just awful. So I thought it was great that so many people shared so many great stories about him because, like, he couldn't have been cooler when we had him, you know what I mean? And both times. And, he did struggle with drinking and all that other stuff, but when we had him, he was nothing but professional. You know what I mean? Like, I think when it was the drinking mixed with additional things is where the real bad problems happened, which is a slippery slope. But, man, it just couldn't have been cooler. You know what I mean? Like, the last time we booked him, I'll never forget. Like, he got upset with the flight that I got him because it was in the morning. And, you know, he was kind of a little stern with me, but then he explained it and he said, listen, I like to fly at night. I'll come in the day before. I just don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, you know, no problem. Booked him a new flight. He came in like, you know, Thursday night or something, and picked him up. And, you know, he wanted some extracurricular things, nothing crazy. Some herbal medication, in which that was arranged through Mr. Ronald Two Legs. And, myself and Two Legs and Scott Hall hung out all Thursday night. You know, I don't partake in such things, but, you know, they did. And then Scott said, hey, you know, let's go to a bar. And I thought, I got nervous. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I go, uh-oh, you know, like, I don't know if this should be going on. And he just wanted to go sit at a bar and talk. And he goes, listen, man, I know I was a dick. I was a dick to you about this whole flight thing. Let me make it up to you. And he just bought myself and Two Legs drinks for hours to just, you know, make up for our, you know, I guess it wasn't a disagreement, just our misunderstanding. And you know, it was like a living shoot interview. And, you know, I was like, listen, man, I told him, I was like, you were my guy. And he's like, dude, I got on the plane, man. You don't got to lie to me anymore. And I was like, no, like, I'm serious. You know, I was like, and he was great. And I put the story out there about how he did the same thing for the students that drove him around that weekend. And, you know, he came back and, you know, hung out at the show and gave people feedback and, you know, sat back there and just talked to everybody. And it was just so approachable, so awesome, willing to give feedback to anybody that asked. It was just for who he was. And, you know, obviously his reputation preceded itself. He had no business being as cool as he was both times that we booked him. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, all you hear, and that's what I mean. And that's what kind of sucks about social media and the age that we live in is you really, until that WWE documentary came out in 2017, you know, like you only really heard bad stuff about Scott Hall. You didn't hear any of the good stuff. And I'm just glad that I have those few days, you know, both in 2015 and in 2020. I'll certainly never forget, you know, if you could see my office right now, it's kind of like Scott Hall crazy. I have a Scott Hall figure hanging up. I have a autographed Intercontinental title in my office. I have a diamond stud and big Scott Hall with Kurt Hennig from the AWA framed, hanging up in my office. I mean, Scott Hall was my guy, and it's so unfortunate. And I just hope that people, you know, not to sound preachy, we've gotten a little preachy a few times on this podcast, but I just hope people fucking just think before they tweet or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you look like a fucking idiot now that were mean to this guy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just so unnecessary. And like, it's, you know, it really just, it's kind of gross, you know, and we see it. You log on to Twitter right now, somebody is burying somebody for some mistake that they've made, and it is the end of the world. I don't know. I'm not with it. You know, I think Scott Hall is a perfect example of a person that made quite a few mistakes and was still an awesome person.
And you know, to go even further, we covered it on the podcast previously, but it's worth reiterating. And you know, you talk about the social media, but sometimes that's the cool power of this show. And when we get a larger amount of listeners and stuff, you know, we have these experiences with these people, and we're able to share these firsthand accounts, especially the positive ones. And it's much more so than a tweet. You're hearing our voices. You're hearing the excitement of which we talk about these things. So I think that can go further, and it's one of those things. Looking back, that makes me grateful for us doing this podcast. Is we kind of have that, just a very, 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 very small amount of power, but it's there. But all the students that rode with Scott Hall that weekend, the last time he was here, we've talked about it, and Derek Dillinger was one of those guys, and you can ask him about it if you see him. Just spent the entire weekend, a good part of the entire weekend, traveling around between Pennsylvania and here with Scott Hall. He paid for everybody's gas, paid for everybody's meals, and when asked about it, or not even asked, he just said, "This is what you're supposed to do as a veteran. You're supposed to take care of these younger guys."
And I specifically thanked him, before he left the Tadmor Shrine. I said, "Hey, man, I just want to thank you. You didn't have to do that. They were happy to take you." And he said, "Kurt Hennig always taught me." He said, "You got to take care of the young guys coming up." He goes, "That's what a veteran's supposed to do." And he said, "And besides that, you never know who they're going to grow up to be." And he kind of gave that Scott Hall smirk, you know what I mean? And raised his eyebrows a little bit, which, was, just perfect. You know what I mean? Because he really is, smarter than everybody in the room in a way, especially when it comes to wrestling. Two other kind of quick Scott Hall stories. The first time we had him in 2015, ICP was doing something in Cleveland, and somehow, we got a hold of each other, and they had learned that Scott Hall was in town and asked me to come bring him down. And I took him down. It was at the Agora. And, this is before really, I did too much with ICP ever. This is long before we booked him, and developed the relationship I have with him now. But, we go in, and me and Scott Hall walk in the back, and they take us right into Violent J's private dressing room, and they're just sitting there talking, and Violent J is putting his makeup on in the mirror. And I was like, this is just a weird experience that I would probably never get unless I was rolling with Scott Hall. You know what I mean? Like watching Violent J put the gimmick on, right there and getting ready. And Scott Hall's just busting his balls. Another one in 2020, which nobody on earth could do this, and I wouldn't make fun of them unless they're Scott Hall. Scott Hall, his winter jacket was just a purple Ribera jacket. And he just wore a Ribera jacket around. And I snapped a picture of him. I have it on my phone. It's just him walking into a gas station with a Ribera jacket on. And I was like, Scott Hall is the only person that could pull this off. And it's totally makes sense. I don't know if Ronald Two Legs is going to tell any stories on Pod Van Dam, but he has his fair share of stories to tell, which we have been going back and forth about privately, all the last week, because, we may that was right before everything shut down. And, I'm sure Scott Hall has seen people since then, but, he did not travel too much during the pandemic. And, there's a lot of speculation that the pandemic is really, I know X-Pac said some things about the pandemic really kind of, and the kind of seclusion from the world really kind of contributed to everything that led to these circumstances. And Pat and I were talking, we may be, some of the last people that he had a fun night out on the town with, so to speak, before everything. I know he did WrestleMania last year and stuff like that, but from what I understand, he didn't do too many appearances throughout the entire pandemic. A couple virtuals, I think, if that. But man, just such a bummer, such a great guy. Hopefully, Pat will tell some of his stories on the Pod Van Dam podcast. But we just had a great time. When you're sitting in a bar and Scott Hall is just buying all your drinks and he's giving you a personal shoot interview, and he's just totally coherent with it, and just wants to talk wrestling and tell every amazing story that you've ever heard. You know what I mean? Like, and some stories that he's never told in shoot interviews that are, you know, super private, like very intriguing things. When you know, he didn't really know me from anything. You know what I mean? We just kind of got along, and you know, just such a bummer. And I'm just so I'm thankful that I got a chance to know him in such a probably a very small capacity compared to most people, but very thankful, you know, for those moments. I'll never forget them.
And I mean, we could talk a lot about his wrestling career, but so many people on other podcasts, I'm sure, are going to do that. We touched on it, and we both think that he is one of the most influential people in terms of wrestling of all times, in terms of everything that came from it. Like you said, you know, guaranteed contracts, not really a thing without Scott Hall. But the one thing
you go ahead. I'll say.
I was just going to say, because, you know, we talked about Wrestle Rager, and, you know, the bittersweet part of this is there's a little bit of, you know, we're learning some things, right? Every once in a while, the house is up in terms of how much money we have sitting around for another show, and we toy with these really dumb ideas, and we say, this is
the dumbest one I ever had. But it was like, in the moment when we were all tuned up and I came up with this idea, it sounded like the greatest idea of all time.
And, you know, so
do you want me to tell it? Do you think?
Well, for me, I feel like this leads to, you know, we shouldn't always be so quick to shoot the dumb ideas down, you know, because when we have that opportunity and that money, I don't know. I just think we should.
It is a stupid idea. It was the stupidest idea, but it was so good at the same time.
Go ahead.
Well, before I tell the idea, you know, I don't know Cody Hall from anybody. Never met him. Don't know him. It's just another thing. People are fucking so shitty to that guy. Like, be respectful. You know, he lost his fucking dad. You know what I mean? Like, let's not jump back on the fucking, like, we're going to make fun and be mean to this guy on social media. Like, I think, you know, obviously he has done some questionable things on Twitter, no doubt. But, like, come on, dude. Like, fucking everyone needs to just chill out for a little bit, I think, and just stop. I hate the dunking on Twitter, so to speak. You know, it's just so, like, I don't know. Like, I just roll my eyes at some of it. But the Wrestle Rager idea, in which I cooked up when we locked in the first stop last year when we were in there, and there were a few other ideas that may remain on the table for other things, so I won't get into those. But the most outlandish idea that I had was we were going to book Scott Hall and Kevin Nash for Wrestle Rager, and don't reach out to anybody, because this never kind of left the office, right? Like, this was never negotiated. But the concept was we were going to book Scott Hall and Kevin Nash for Wrestle Rager. We were not going to advertise them. We were going to get them to the first stop well before doors open. You know what I mean? Well before, you know, people started showing up. And we were just going to have them sit at the bar for the duration of the show and just say, oh man, we have a long layover in Cleveland, and we just decided to come to a bar and grab some food. And they were just going to be inside the first stop, signing autographs and taking selfies as if they had no idea a wrestling show was going on.
Yeah, they were never going to make an appearance on the actual wrestling show. They were just going to stay in the bar.
They were just going to be in a long layover in Cleveland. And nobody was ever going to acknowledge it. And it was just going to be one of those things like, oh my God, can you believe that? Like, what are the chances? Stupid. But man, when I had a couple cocktails in me and I came up with this idea, everybody was really on board for it until we all woke up the next day and realized, man, I don't know. I don't know if we should do that.
I think we were all still very on board with it. It was just a matter of, maybe we should save our money. But
Right,
it's one of those things, though, where we always talk about like the you had to be there kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, man, if there's ever anything to get people to be like, okay, I'm no longer missing an AIW show.
And that was like
Kevin Nash just hanging out.
That was the point. I was like, man, no one's ever going to miss a show that ever. You know what I mean? Like if we did that,
Yeah.
they're just on a long layover. So yeah, I don't know. It's so disappointing though that that never came to be. We won't have any more moments with Scott Hall, but I'm glad so many other people had similar stories. You know what I mean? That's what was great. Just that was a great part of social media is, going through and reading all these stories and all these people having these just great interactions with Scott Hall. And I'm sure like at a point, like we did, like everyone thought like, man, I heard all those Scott Hall stories, but man, that didn't happen with us. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure a lot of people had that thought. Because, I know we certainly all did is like, man, like you hear all this stuff, but man, he couldn't have been cooler. Like we fucking lucked out. You know what I mean? And then to go on social media and it seems like a lot more people lucked out, you know what I mean, than didn't, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And, I thought that was great for, Scott to finally, get his flowers, so to speak. I just think it's sad that, he had to pass away for people to do it. That's really the sad part is, I wish he could have been alive to see all that stuff and to see all the love that he got. But, another just kind of great thing is the fact that he did get to kind of close his story out with WWE in a positive note. You know what I mean? 2 Hall of Fames, the documentary, several appearances there, in the last, 4 or so years, when he was kind of, thought to be, never welcome there ever again. So, in a way he did get his happy ending, but, I just wish, he would have been able to see what his true impact was, throughout the entire industry.
Oh, yeah. One of the, maybe one of the first places that he acknowledged publicly that he was going to be in the Hall of Fame a second time.
AIW,
Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, because he was going to go
to the ring. He had me introduce him as soon to be 2-time Hall of Famer before they had even announced it on TV.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm glad that we actually got footage of him though, like doing something, because the first time he wouldn't do anything on the show. Yeah. And that was when he was really trying to clean himself up. Like he just kind of coming out of it. Was he's still living with DDP at the time? He was living, so he lived like close to DDP at the time, and I remember like he wanted to get out of there as soon as he was done because I don't think he could handle being around the boys. You know what I mean? And like just seeing like the fun, and he wanted to he's like, hey, I want to get out of here. Which was fine. The second time he was way more like down to earth, like down to hang, and felt a lot more comfortable with where he was. But man, just such a bummer. I could talk about Scott Hall literally all day. I mean, one of the greatest, and I'll say it, till the end of time, one of the most important, if not the most important professional wrestler ever.
We'll turn the page here. It's no great transition, but we talk about upcoming Akron shows. And while we have one coming up this weekend, another Akron show announced, Tadmore Shrine. It's happening in May. Gauntlet for the Gold. We told you folks that we're going to get back into the regularly scheduled shows. They're going to be in different months than what you would be used to, maybe different orders. The first one, though, Gauntlet for the Gold, it's going to take place in May. traditionally, maybe you remember it would be this month in March. It's been pushed back, of course. And yeah, I mean, we made the decision to do it at the Tadmore, put a few more bodies in there. I think that makes sense. Give us kind of
I mean,
space in general.
there's a few benefits to doing the Tadmore. You know, the big one is over 100 people held on to those tickets for the last 2 years, you know, which is crazy. But, you know, we have made so many adjustments throughout these kind of COVID growing pains. You know, we sell less tickets, you know what I mean? No matter what we sell, there's less per row, all sorts of kind of different alterations that we have made through the trial and error. So Tadmore Shrine gives us more room to kind of accommodate those people, you know what I mean, that have held on to the tickets for so long, and it won't be a total kind of, you know, money loser, so to speak, you know, because that money did help get us through the pandemic, and that, you know, that money is, you know what I mean, kind of spent.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like one of those things to where the shrine will allow us to kind of open it up wider and hopefully draw, you know what I mean, to where it equals out somewhat. I still anticipate that show is going to be a money loser, but it's not really if you boil it down, because all that money helped us throughout, you know, the last 2 years. So, you know, if you're looking at it on paper just as is, March 21st, 2022, that event is probably not going to turn a profit, so to speak. But in the grand scheme of things, we're very thankful for those people that held on to the tickets. We promised that we were going to make it up to you and make good on it, and that's what we're doing. I spent all Sunday, you know, little kind of insider baseball here is the event was so long ago, even though it was postponed on Eventbrite, they would not allow me to utilize the same, I guess, events within Eventbrite and just kind of change the date around and change things around, because it had been 2 years. I had to make a whole new event, and you can't like export things over. So I had to go through and hand type in every single order that, you know, was still kind of out there in the world. So that's how I spent my Sunday. Everything is kind of up to date and ready to go. We're going to give people like, I don't know, I'm going to give people till like Tuesday. If for whatever reason, you know, the venue change or the date or whatever, if you can't make it, we will still honor a refund. And then after that, you know, we're going to put the tickets on Patreon and start getting them out there. Probably, I would anticipate them being on sale to everybody Saturday while we're actually doing our event. I'll try to get them on sale publicly for everybody that day.
There you go. So then let's roll into this weekend. A lot going on here down in Akron, Ohio at the Tadmore Shrine. I mean, we've got the doctor. Dr. D himself will be there. We talked about that several weeks ago when we first made mention that we would have him on there, and you know, this is a big Pedro get, if I'm correct in that.
Well, I mean, we both Pedro really pushed it for the last I don't know, couple of years, and you know, very intriguing to me as well. Expensive, you know what I mean? So we have got ourselves in a little deeper than I anticipated with this event. I'll say that, you know, it is a hard sell. So you do have to get a little bit of the hard truth on our end. And we did dig ourselves in a bit of a hole, you know, and I not purposefully, but you know, not to sound like the broken record of your parents or whatever, but transportation prices are astronomical right now. Gas, flights, did not anticipate that because everything has been pretty decent, so to speak, up until this point. So the travel accommodations have really kind of put us in a hole for this event. At first it sounded like sounded pretty good that Dr. D is a driver. He didn't want a flight. He wants to drive. Now I don't know if that's so good. I'm not looking forward to that conversation with the transportation expenses. So that, and the flights for all the other people that are coming in for the show.
Well, even some of the drivers, we got a couple drivers on this show, and
I mean,
that cost is pretty much doubled in terms of them having to get gas. So
there's just a lot of different things going on. So, the show is selling slower than a usual Akron show. I don't know if it's because things are kind of opening up and maybe people aren't just anticipating walking up. I don't know. You know what I mean? So there's a little nervousness there. But I mean, we're too far in, you know what I mean? There's no turning back now, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like we're pulling the plug on this. Yeah,
right. We just have to ride it and ride it out and see what happens and hope for the best.
Yeah, one of the attractions on the show, we always try to talk about bringing people in.
We got to talk about Dr. D though. I mean, before we move on.
All right. Well, I did gloss over him, but we've chatted about Dr. D. I wasn't too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm regardless of all the stress and everything else, I'm super excited about it. I think he is going to be an interesting guy to have a conversation with. So very rare, doesn't do too much, does conventions here and there. Doesn't appear, I don't think he's ever appeared around here. So, that's just one of those things. It's like, it's now or never, you know what I mean? Like, these guys aren't getting any younger.
Yeah.
I think, regardless of where we're at, I think it's going to be a cool experience. I think for those that get it are going to love it. And then there's going to be probably a good handful of people that have no idea why he's there, who he is, or understand it, but that's kind of the risk of, when you book one of these kind of like cult figures, so to speak.
Well, but we've said on here before, don't come asking to get slapped. Like, that's not a thing. We're not going to have a slap line. That's not a thing that we're going to do.
Right.
If anybody's going to get slapped,
it's probably going to be me.
We've got some people. Yeah.
It's probably going to be me when I get that fucking trans bill.
And you say, hey, man, we're going to have to renegotiate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely will be an interesting guy. And because, even aside from the cult figure aspect of him slapping a reporter and everything, he's a guy that was around in a very, not just different era, but like historical era, I guess.
Yeah. And he was, there for that, almost like that transition era. So to speak,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Very,
like right before,
very
leading
unique.
up to WrestleMania, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And prior,
so he's gonna have some, just some unique stories that are going to be pretty cool, I think. So it's going to be fun to have him there for sure. And hopefully some folks take the time and, not too much time because we got to keep that line moving, but take the time, ask some questions. That'd be pretty cool. I think that he will be a very, he'll be a fun meet and greet that people were not expecting maybe to be as positive as they realize, if that makes sense.
No,
like he's one of
absolutely.
those guys where you know about him, you know who he is, and the hope for people after Saturday is that they didn't realize how fun it would be meeting him.
I hope so. I mean, I haven't met him
Yeah,
yet, so I can't really comment on it. But
right. That's the hope. That's just my thinking with all the experiences he likely has, and from the time frame from which he was in the industry and coming up and everything.
our correspondence thus far has been enjoyable.
Well, that's
I'll
good.
say that.
That's always
I'll say
positive. You know, we have former old wrestling figures. We've had former WWE guys. One of the cool things, we can't get WWE people on shows, but we can get you television stars on AIW shows. And we're doing it again with AEW stars. The tag team 2.0 are going to be in the house making an AIW debut.
Recently rebranded the Jericho Appreciation Society.
Jericho Appreciation Society. These are guys that you're pretty high on, I think, John Thorne, right? You find them entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Along the lines of a Max Caster.
Well, I mean, I follow them, from their Chikara days, and they were always, it's kind of funny because when they had like a very hot independent run, years and years and years ago, with Chikara, and then obviously they go on and they were signed, and they did whatever they did in NXT, but when they were released, Kevin Owens had reached out to me and was asking me if I would be interested in using them, and all that stuff. So certainly I was, and I went to go reach out, and there was like a DM from 2013 trying to get booked in AIW. So when I officially reached out to them, I said, "Hey, just now replying to this message from 2013. Very interested."
Can we get the same rate?
And that's kind of how things started moving, and it started moving, back in the summer when they were released. And then, obviously they had to go through, their non-compete, and they started with AEW, and they, had some visa things that they had to get worked out. So like, they were shooting, they thought, first of the year they would be able to start doing things. And actually when they were wrestling at AEW, when we were there, I went, oh shit, I forgot to, follow back up. So I said, hey, you're wrestling right now, and I just remembered that maybe we should work something out. And then we were able to work out this date. So that's kind of the story on 2.0 coming to AIW, the long form of it. But I'm very excited. I think To Infinity and Beyond are the best opponents for them. All those guys have kind of those old school Chikara roots. They're all, friendly with each other. I think it will make for a very entertaining matchup.
Yeah, I was going to say, these guys are clearly familiar with each other, and have obviously crossed paths, and this should be very entertaining. I think it's the dynamics of wrestling are interesting, as such that 2.0 could have come here, and they could have taken on the Bitcoin Boys, Balking Season, PME, TME, the Shooters, any number of the tag teams, the production, but there's always that fun dynamic with these two teams having perhaps never met, and it's these guys who've been around for some time, and they're stars in their own right, and now they're going to work with like our up and coming talent who are stars within AIW, let's say. But then you have this dynamic of two tag teams, guys who have worked together before in the past, and it's kind of coming back around, and here they are again. And there's probably for them a fun history there, and that can make for a very entertaining and interesting dynamic to a wrestling match that can, just it can really be better than what you had expected in terms of, hey, 2.0 versus the younger stars, like they just,
from my perspective, you know what I mean? Like, these guys are on television. Obviously that is top priority, right?
Yeah.
But when you put them in there with someone they're familiar with, and not saying that they would, not give 100%, otherwise, but it kind of, as a promoter, gives you some insurance, so to speak, that, they're going out there with people they know, people they trust. They're not going to be too worried, hey, I got TV on Wednesday, I can't, I can't do this, or I don't want to do that. So it's kind of, insurance from my standpoint is, I think this is the best matchup that we would potentially get. So, that played into it as well. That is just, that's my assumption. You know what I mean? Like, just sure. Based on historically, dealing with different people. I just think that this would be the best matchup that we're gonna get, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it's the concept of, what, I know these guys, I trust these guys. They know where I am. We have a good relationship. I know that they're going to take care of me. So, that's an important thing. But also, too, maybe is there a little bit of a motivating factor when you throw them in there with somebody that they know? It becomes a little bit more motivational, like, okay, I'm, from the standpoint of 2.0, all right, we're excited now to have this match because we know these guys. We know that this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's do some cool stuff. Let's go out there. Let's have a great match, as opposed to, and I'm not saying that they would do this, but certainly, as a promoter in your history of things, you probably have had people, big names come in, you booked them, and it's like, all right, let me go out there and get my payday. I'll roll around a little bit. Where this dynamic.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they would do that. I'm just saying, no. in general, I think that this was the best matchup to, optimize their time. Mm-hmm. On Saturday that they're here. I just think, and they've been nothing but cool and said not, they haven't really said much of anything. But I just think, from my perspective, I thought this would be the best way to go about it.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get it. I think this is going to be a fun, interesting blend of TV style, and just because they know each other so long, you're going to mesh that indie style of matches and wrestling with this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. 2.0 versus 2 Infinity and Beyond. I'm really looking forward to that. There's a reason why they're on the marquee for this one, man. But also,
let's get to our other marquee
the other matches. Yeah, you want to talk about the big one?
Well, yeah. Steve,
the biggest match of the night.
We've been going for an hour. We've been going for an hour already.
Kaplan versus Broner, the biggest match of the night.
Honestly, like I'm really excited about this card. To be honest,
I'm looking at the card right now, and it's incredible. Kaplan versus Broner, like these two are just going to beat the hell out of each other.
Right. Listen, we don't have to overanalyze every match, but I think that this is a really good sleeper card, which is kind of, and I know that we still have a few things that need to, be publicly announced on social media. There's a couple left. But I think that this is really a sleeper, crazy good card that, really kind of came together very nicely, honestly.
Yeah, like I said, those two just going to beat the hell out of each other. Jocelyn taking on Katie Arquette. Katie Arquette had a great showing her first AIW match at Winchester. Now she's going to be here in Akron. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of upside to Katie Arquette, you know, and there's a lot of upside of, you know, that is the kind of collateral damage, so to speak, of the Winchester events, right? Like we get to see people in person and see them work, and you know, now she's found her way on a Tadmore Shrine show, you know, and then potentially an Odeon show. You never know. You know, this is just kind of the I guess example of kind of the system, so to speak, we're trying to put in place here, working.
For the first time in well over 2 years, Josh Prohibition in singles competition taking on Chase Oliver. So you talk about a sleeper card. J Pro rolling into.
He's feeling froggy. You know, he's been back training consistently at the AIW Academy for the last few months. You know, he did the Hell on Earth main event. Obviously, you know, wanted to kind of lay a little low for the holidays. You know, we've all talked about, you know, the COVID surge and everything else that went on. But you know, he started getting the itch again, you know, since he's been training, and he reached out and wanted to know the dates and the schedule. And he said, hey, you know, what about me getting on that Akron card? And you know, that's really how this came together. And I thought that Chase Oliver would be a great opponent for Josh. You know, he's used to working with, you know, people of Chase's capabilities and talents. And, you know, Chase has been progressing very well these last few months. And I think, you know, this is a good reward for him to get in there, you know, one-on-one with a veteran like Josh Prohibition and see what they can do together.
You know, speaking of people really kind of pushing themselves and getting better and better, and we see that progression every show that he's on. Riley Rose gets an opportunity in singles competition, just one-on-one. It's Riley and Derek Dillinger. Derek continues to have success here throughout 2022. It really kind of launched for him in 2021. He had a fantastic year and showing, and it just continues to grow. Both of these guys,
I think, more than success, so to speak, as far as talking about Derek, it's more of he has established a presence, you know, in a presentation, and it's made him a star in the eyes of the AIW fans. And, you know, now that it's sort of getting that trickle down effect, and he's picking up more bookings because of that, because he has figured out his presentation. And, you know, not so much wins and losses as far as Derek Dillinger is concerned, but the overall of finding out who he is as a performer and what he is, you know, presentation wise, I think has really kind of catapulted him up a few rungs on the ladder, more so than any wins or losses. And, you know, Riley Rose is a guy that I think needs to figure that part out. He's extremely talented in the ring. And I think, you know, as we progress with him over, you know, these next few months, hopefully he can find that last piece, you know, and maybe beating Derek is that last piece, you know, for the fans to really embrace him. I don't know. But you know, I think this is another sleeper match of two wildly talented guys.
Yeah. Folks are going to get a treat. I know as of this recording, it has not been mentioned on social media yet, but Dominic Guarini, his opponent, if you're a longtime AIW fan, or you've gone to, I don't know, like UXWA in the past, the Shogun is here, folks. Jackson Stone, Dominic
former gut check winner for Impact. You know, kind of coming full circle. Why Dom wanted to wrestle him is, you know, he did take part in the New Talent Initiative that took place in February of 2020. The show that, we were just discussing about Scott Hall being there. He did the New Talent Initiative, and he actually got a dark match on the show in front of the live crowd against Holden Albright. They had a really exciting match for the coaches earlier in the day. So we decided to, give them a few minutes and put it on in front of the crowd. And, the pandemic and everything else kind of halted any sort of, plan moving forward, mixing in with our own students debuting and things like that. But, I had asked Dom who he wanted to wrestle. And, I know he's, in the midst of a heated rivalry with Casey Carrington and Brian Carson. But, this is Dom's home base. So I kind of give him, an option, to pick an opponent at these Akron shows occasionally. And, he's also been out with an injury. So he didn't get to participate in the last one. So he picked Jackson Stone. He thought that he deserved an opportunity. Jackson Stone swung by Wrestle Rave a few weeks ago and came and was helping out, and that kind of led to him being fresh in Dom's mind, I believe, and that's who Dom wanted to wrestle. So that's who Dom is going to wrestle on Saturday, Jackson Stone.
And that's going to be, if you've never seen Jackson Stone wrestle, we talked about Kaplan and Isaiah Broner earlier. Jackson Stone's another one, man. That's a hard hitting dude. That's for sure. And then we get to what will certainly be a wild 4-way tag team action between the Bitcoin Boys, the main event, Philly Marino Experience, and Bulking Season. Chaos is what I'm anticipating there. I mean,
all three teams are kind of in the hunt for the tag team titles, and PME wasn't so nice at Wrestle Rave. Bulking Season had him beat. Spoiler alert. So I figured, maybe I'd give Bulking Season the rematch, but then I figured, well, the main event kind of got screwed.
They did.
Bulking Season got screwed. The Bitcoin Boys are kind of always in the hunt, so to speak. So I figured let's make it a good old fashioned 4-way.
I do believe PME's last loss came in this building to TME prior to them winning the tag team titles back.
Is that right?
That is right. That was the same night. We saw them adorned as Broski 1 and Broski 2, later helping Matt Cardona, who, as we speak about, would bring us to the main event there. The old Broski himself will be in the house. Matt Cardona and his pal Brian Myers back again, taking on the Rip City Shooters. So Myers, Cardona taking on Bishop and Barkley. No love lost here.
None. No love lost. I mean, I'm really excited to see how this goes, especially how things ended at the Odeon with Wes Barkley getting his head. I mean, basically, they didn't shave his head, but they might as well have. He has, all of his hair was cut off, which shout out to the Rip City Shooters and Dom, who all appeared on the NWA Crockett Cup over the weekend. Super proud of all those guys getting that opportunity. They didn't move on, but very cool nonetheless for them to be on that stage for the NWA. But very excited about this main event. I think there is a lot of combustible elements here, and I don't know how else to describe it. Really, like, I'm excited. If you've been following AIW, you know the story, the hatred that is there. It seems the AIW fans are with Rip City. It seems he's kind of, what I call the universe. These new fans, the WWE fans that come, are solely behind Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. So I think it creates a great atmosphere at the shows. I do want to remind everybody, this event is not streaming live.
That's right.
None of the events at the Tadmor Shrine, as of now, will stream live. That is based on their internet capabilities. So just so you know, for future reference, if you see a show at the Tadmor Shrine, it is 99% probably not streaming live.
There you go. So the only way to watch this show this Saturday is to get your tickets. There are still tickets available. Shop.aiwrestling.com. John Thorne, I dare say the Rip City Shooters and the major players, this is one of the most underrated rivalries in independent wrestling right now. I really don't think enough people have been paying attention to this.
Yeah, I don't understand how this
has been going on.
I don't understand how this isn't on the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated or something. Come on, photogs.
Yeah, I mean, look, Cardona and Myers they'll randomly quote tweet. Yeah, they will randomly quote tweet Bishop or Barkley just to talk shit to them.
Yeah, I think
it's insane.
I do think that there should be probably more eyes on this feud. I think it's been extremely entertaining so far. But hey, we can only do what we can do. We can't force people to cover us or pay attention to us. All we can keep doing is chugging along and trying to survive, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, our fans are loving it, and at the end of the day, that's what matters most. But of course, we'd love to get more and more fans. So if you know someone who's a borderline wrestling fan, a casual wrestling fan, whatever you want to call it, get them hooked onto this, because this is one of those shows that will get people hooked into AIW, I think, just from watching this. You can come to the show, not know who anybody is, and you're going to have a hell of a time. As I look at this card top to bottom, I mean, it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. But again, if you want to see it, folks, you can either wait or you can come Saturday, shop.aiwrestling.com.
Yeah, and just to, let me see here. I'll give everybody kind of an update as of this recording, where we are ticket-wise. So we have, front row is sold out.
Okay.
We have 4 second row tickets available, 10 third row tickets available, 1 fourth row ticket available, 30 general admission tickets available. And that's
there
it.
You go. There you have it, folks.
I mean, will there be tickets available at the door? I don't know. It really depends on how things sell throughout the week. But there's a possibility I could open up more general admission tickets. But obviously, we want to get those premium seats filled first and foremost. So buy them up. I mean, that's where we're at as of this recording.
Yeah, and don't wait on the hope that more general admission tickets may open up day of, because there's a chance that they won't. We've done it before where we just said, all right, this is a heck of a sales in terms of what we have, so let's cut it off, and that's it. So show up, folks. Show up to shop.aiwrestling.com and get your tickets and come hang out with us on Saturday night at the Tadmor Shrine in Akron, Ohio. John Thorne, we have some questions, but we're over an hour. We can always answer these questions another time.
Let's do it. I mean, might as well.
All right. Here we go. Of course, this is a question. Any discussions with Johnny Gargano to come in to do a signing appearance at a show?
I've been in contact with Johnny. I don't want to just have Johnny sign, though. And that's kind of where he is at currently. He's not doing any wrestling matches for the foreseeable future. So, we've been in contact. He has the schedule. And I just kind of, left the ball in his court, so to speak. I just said, hey, if you want to do it, here are the dates. Pick one, and let's go from there and work something out. But he said he's right now, with being a new father and everything else, he's really just getting out of the house now. He's taking some signing bookings, and I think he's just going to kind of focus on doing things like that and conventions for the foreseeable future. And only he knows where he's going to wrestle next and what he's going to do. There have been talks, but I don't have anything to really report on other than he said, he's not taking, he doesn't want to do any matches right now. He just wants to do signings currently. But said, when it does change, he will, reach out to me.
Steve Guy recently what is the best wrestling related birthday present you've ever gotten? I don't know, man. When I was a kid, I got, of course, the Hasbros all the time, and I had that blue plastic wrestle ring. I had a WCW wrestling ring that came with a cage that you could put on it. That was sweet. So, I mean, all of those things. Also, WrestleMania used to fall around my birthday, so I'd get bought the pay-per-view. I don't know. Those are probably good wrestling-related birthday presents. I got a ring announce Gauntlet for the Gold on my birthday.
Yeah, I wish, cool. I would have, cared more. You know what I mean? Collectibles, weren't really, a thing when we were kids. We'd be so rich if we had any of that shit.
Yeah, I was a kid, so I was playing with them. You know what I mean?
I had Hasbros and I remember getting Royal Rumble on Sega Genesis. Shout out to Scott Hall. He's on the cover.
Yeah.
There's a Ramon. But other than that, I don't really specifically remember specific wrestling presents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, just the toys, really. I did used to get the styrofoam replica titles, as a kid. You don't talk about they Velcro on the back.
Oh yeah,
not everybody has now, the real deal.
I had the IC one. I got it at a house show at the Richfield Coliseum. I remember that.
Yeah,
that was just a souvenir. Had nothing to do with my birthday. And I also remember getting a cassette tape that had entrance music on it.
Ooh, I had the CD. I had a couple WWF The Music volumes.
I remember it had Tatanka on it. Natural Disasters were on there. I don't really remember what else though, but it was a cassette tape.
I had the one of the CDs that I got. The music was the the Attitude Era, but when they did the crossover, so there was the Stone Cold song, but it wasn't just the music; it was with lyrics.
Yeah, volume 4, I think it was called.
Yeah. So that was good. It's pretty cool. It was from our friend Jay Gold. I understand Cardona's been good for business, but where do you see the future of the Intense title going? Lots of talent could make up that division and give some big main events at Winchester or other small venues, even the medium-sized shows. Best looking belts in the business.
Yeah, obviously, that is a thing that is in the back of our heads. This whole thing started with, the angle with Matthew Justice cashing in his J-Lit win and becoming a double champion. And, that visual of him with both the belts just was so cool. And then, the feud with Josh Bishop back and forth, with obviously, again, that visual of those two belts, for that feud. And then when they kind of went away from each other, there were plans kind of maybe about doing something. And then when, we locked in Cardona for the extended contract, so to speak, I just thought you had to keep rolling with it because the visual, it's in a way it's marketing, and look at how much he parades those belts around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, I think once he's had his run, we will look into probably splitting them. But I think as long as he's champion, we're not gonna do anything strictly from a marketing standpoint. And maybe that sounds silly, but that's really the purpose behind it at this point. Is he plasters those photos everywhere, tags us. Our social media numbers have grown quite a bit. So for the time being, no, but that is what you said is the reason why the Intense title exists. I compare it to the Intercontinental title. So that is certainly the plan going forward, eventually, just not anytime in the next, whenever, until he loses the belt.
Well, if you ask him, he never will, but we'll see.
It's very possible. It's very possible. Yeah. It could end Saturday. It could end in 3 years. I don't know what the future holds.
Can Matt Cardona bring the NWA title this Saturday for pictures? That's a question better for Cardona on Twitter.
I don't know.
Something tells me he may bring it with him. He loves carrying those titles everywhere he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That is a question for him. He has not indicated to me yes or no. I would think that he will, though.
I would think so. Like you said, loves showing all these titles off. And then this one's been touched on. We're our friend, not Big Dan Champion, but Big Dan in the Discord. He's actually from overseas. Was there ever a reason for Phoenix no showing AIW? Seems strange that Penta turned up alone. I think Big Dan's catching up on some
certainly
TV there.
Certainly seems strange. No. It was. I mean, it was missed his flight, delayed flight. However, I was flying him out of somewhere in California, and he was sending me like things about flights from Mexico City, and just he was never in the places where he told me he was going to be. He was, it was then it was like, oh, I'm in the air, I'm on my way. And then Pentagon just kind of, the English got real bad when I wanted to get an answer on that. But he showed up, Pentagon showed up. So, I mean, I don't know. I wish I really knew, but I've heard of Phoenix doing that in other places, allegedly. So I really don't know. He got his flight. He had everything he asked for. Pentagon made it. Phoenix did not. So, I mean, who knows? But no, I never spoke really ever again.
But always a good time with Pentagon. He always brings it when he comes on those shows. So a very positive experience with him. Both times we've had him here.
I've nothing bad to say about Pentagon.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. And I think it may be something that we've talked about. And we actually have kind of dabbled a little bit in this in the past when we were at Mount Carmel. Thoughts on doing an AIW Fan Fest type event for Gauntlet weekend? Live podcast, Q&As, meet and greet, super tickets, Steve Guy variety show. I don't think anybody wants to see that, etc.
We're going to have a meeting coming up. We do have Gauntlet dates tentative. We have been talking about maybe revamping it, not having that day show, so to speak, maybe doing something else, maybe doing nothing, maybe not doing a tournament. There's been all sorts of different things presented. So we just have to kind of sit down and, pros and cons things. in the early days of the Gauntlet, we would do a fan fest. And, I think the people that were there had fun. I don't know if it was well organized or anything like that either. You know what I mean? We certainly did not have the team in place that we have now. So it's possible, and yeah, I don't know. It's certainly something that we have been internally discussing and thinking about. So I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do. But there are Gauntlet weekend dates, and, we're going to try to iron that out probably soon. Gauntlet is going to fall differently in the schedule than it normally did. Some people who held onto those tickets probably have an idea of what the dates are now, because that one was changed within Eventbrite. So spoiler alert on that, but it's we're discussing it. Nothing's for sure, and especially there is a possibility that maybe we would do the Chandler thing, another as a standalone. We are working with the people from Great Lakes Geek Fest again. That was announced this week. We will be back in Ashtabula on July 30th. So there's a possibility that we would do the Chandler Biggins tournament or memorial show, whatever you want to call it, there, because that is his birthday weekend, obviously, like we did last year. So, there's a lot of things in play right now. We just have to kind of sit down and square them away. But Gauntlet for the Gold, was the first thing that we were like, okay, we're pulling the trigger on it. No turning back. We're going to the schedule this year. So, yeah, I mean, that's a long way of saying not answering the question, I guess.
Yeah. It has been thought about. Is your answer, folks. There you go. That's it. That's it on the questions there, John Thorne. I feel like we've taken up enough people's time. But look, folks, Tadmore Shrine this weekend, shop.aiwrestling.com. Get your tickets for The Doctor is In. It's going to be an incredible show. As we said earlier, you are not going to be able to stream it live. It will ultimately be on IWTV at some point. Could not tell you when necessarily, but there will be a premiere. Smart Mark Video Team will be there. But if you want to watch it as soon as possible, the only way to do that is to be in Akron, Ohio this weekend.
And like I said, that's going to be the mentality for all the Tadmore Shrine shows as of now. So if you want to see them live, you got to live them. You got to live them live.
Got to live them live. There you go, folks. So we hope to see so many of you this weekend. And for those that don't, then watch it when you can watch it and listen to us whenever we feel like we want to do another podcast again. Maybe it'll be next week. Maybe it won't. Maybe we'll keep the suspense going of how the show went. If you weren't there,
I swear we're going to get back on a regular schedule. It's just been, life has been just coming
chaotic.
Up,
Yeah.
It's been, it's been crazy.
It has. We'll get back to it, folks. Don't you worry. So much stuff coming down the pipeline. But for now, the next thing is this Saturday. The Doctor is in. We'll see you in Akron, where we'll all be in, not just the Doctor. And for AIW owner John Thorne, my name is Steve Guy. We'll talk to you next time here on The Card is Going to Change.